Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I've got more test center footage to show you. And this time it's going to be Madeline Pryor and the new Marauders 2.0 team, or Marauders 3.0, depending on the way you look at it. This is the team now is going to take off Sabretooth and include this full team here with Madeline Pryor as the new character. It also will include Emma Frost, so if you're using her in war with, let's say, your Eternals team, you're going to have to put her on war defense with the Marauders to make this team work. But the idea here is essentially this is like a magic. When magic was created for the Uncanny team, you can throw a magic on your Uncanny team, and she makes the entire team a lot better. And so that's essentially what it is with Madeline Pryor. This team now is suddenly a lot better on war defense. I'm going to actually show you that footage in more practice mode in just a minute. But one thing I want to do before we get there is just explain to you why this team is so good. One thing I will say is that, I mentioned in my Envoy preview video for this patch that I had pushed, and a number of the other Envoys as well, but I aggressively pushed to get some stat increases for the Marauders because without them, I was worried that this team could get beaten with essentially subpar offense teams. Now with the stat increases that they gave, this team is quite strong. It's gonna require a very good team to beat this. So this team will be worth building up if you are a end game player who cares about war defense. Okay, so that's the big caveat. Most of us have a gear crunch, particularly with the Scourge event coming up and and so on. But this is a character, if you're really into war, you're an end game kind of player who has everything built out. This is a character, this is a team that I think, particularly if you already have an investment in the Marauders, you already built up the rest of the team, you can kind of have this one character that makes the whole team way better. I just want to show you before I get into the footage why the team's a lot better. One thing that really helps the team a lot is on her passive, she lowers crit chance by 50% for all mutant enemies, which is a kind of a cheesy thing that screws the XFactor because they rely on crits to get turn meter and to get a barrier and all that stuff. So that's one thing that just totally cheeses the team, that team out of it. And then she does have this super attack where she puts ability block, offense down, disrupted all to all the folks on the enemy team, in addition to defense down and a lot of damage. And in addition, and by the way, ability blocked for 2 turns all support enemies, also to all protectors. So very powerful there. And then they've reworked these other characters in the team to make it so the team can beat Shadowland. Shadowland was created originally to counter this team. In part, it's really strong overall. It's lasted quite a long time. It's a year-old team at this point, or over a year old. But in addition, by the way, she does have in her passive something that helps against Shadowland, which is she mind controls her own team to attack the enemy, which undoes or goes around the thing in Shadowland where they can't get mind tricked to attack each other. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then secondly, if you look here at the kits, if you look at, for example, Mystique, she does something that really screws the Shadowland over, which is on her first turn, she actually targets the non-summoned enemy with the lowest speed, which is Night Nurse, and then she applies stun. And so she's going to stun Night Nurse right out, and now Sinister is going to aim for and clone the ally with the highest attack, which is going to be White Tiger. So I'm going to go into this right now. You're going to see how brutal the matchups are for XFactor and Shadowland, but I'm going to go through all the teams in rapid fire because I think that's what you want to see, right? Is how does this team do? So here's the team here. It doesn't have maybe the best ISO setup here on the left, this Marauder team that you see right here. But I go right in, and these are all, by the way, punches across. You can see 745 to 769. They're all rough punch across it, so you can just see Shadowland, and we'll start with that one first. And you're going to see, for the reasons that I showed you, Shadowland's not going to do very well. And by the way, Shadowland's still, over a year later, still a very strong war offense team. So, it is definitely starting to see its age here. And this is an example where they're basically taking one of the teams that does very well here, and it doesn't. So now one thing I'll just show you is Strife now, when he has a charge, which he gets on spawn now with the rework, he has a ton of resistance. So it's just going to be hard to get debuffs to land on him. And really, the way it used to work, so the way it used to work is that Strife, you would put a disrupt on him and with Electra and then just kind of ignore him. Because she would basically clear his taunt. That didn't happen here, and you can see all the ability block and everything from White Tiger's all resisted. Okay, so now you basically have to burn down Strife if you're trying to do this with Shadowland, and unfortunately, that's not working well. Notice they also start with Barrier, which they didn't have before. So instead of burning down Strife, no, I did. I was going to say that's the right move. I may have done a misplay here. Notice here, look at so there's the stun on Night Nurse, which you just saw a second ago, and then here's Madeline Pryor's big move. So now Night Nurse is stunned because of the mind trick from Mystique, and then the whole team's super debuffed, and Night Nurse can't do anything about it. So they basically, just like the new Uncanny rework was hard-coded to beat Black Order, which used to be the natural counter to Uncanny. Now they've made it so this is essentially a natural counter to Shadowland. So I'm going to be quitting out soon. I do that for a lot of these fights. When it's obvious that we're losing, I just quit out because you don't really want to watch me lose. So I just quickly get into the next fight. And the next fight here I do is XFactor. I throw in Namor because I think he's a very good fifth in general. That, he's frankly so good in War Offense, you could throw him in almost any team and make him a lot better. And he's always been a good character to use against Marauders. But you'll see, now the XFactor do, I believe, better, but not as well. You'll see not as many crits as usual, not the kind of damage they usually get. I mean, usually Longshot's just murdering this team. I mean, XFactor, you would eat them alive, and you can see that's not happening here. And all the resistance on Strife means he's just like a brick wall. It's almost like Colossus with the heavy resistance that Colossus has, where it can be really hard to beat him and it requires something else. So here finally Namor gets to go, and he does help. I mean, Namor does a good job of at least removing some turn meter, but they just don't have the damage. So I try to do this last ditch effort I'm like, okay, let's take down Madeline Pryor. It didn't work. Now, I should say these are not my XFactor. They're not the 7 red star, G16 long shot and all that, but these are all 7 yellow, 4 red, all T4 characters on both sides. So they're all even. This is the developer's account, essentially. And you can see once I couldn't take down Madeline Pryor, I'm screwed. I'm stuck behind Strife. I didn't take him down. I probably should have just gone all in on Strife, but I tried to gamble there. But you can see it's not even, though they're clearly doing way better than Shadowland, because the team isn't quite as cheesy of a counter against Shadowland. You can see that just by nerfing the critical chance for this team, they're just doing way worse, because the whole team, the whole way that XFactor works is just by critting a ton. I go right back to Madeline Pryor. I just keep trying, hoping that I could just get her down. I'm always a little short. And it's just because I'm not critting all the time. I have a very good sense how much damage Longshot usually does, but part of it is based on his crit chance. So I think that the crit chance decrease for mutant enemies basically means XFactor's in trouble. Now, I do think a hybrid team with XFactor might do okay. Like if you put Zemo, maybe Yo-Yo, some other characters on this team that are not mutants, with like Longshot, Shatterstar, and Polaris or something, maybe. But it's tough. Another thing that really helped this team is by getting this team to target, the highest damage enemy, in this case Longshot, for cloning, means that you don't have Sinister cloning a dupe, which often is what was happening before. So all right, so that didn't go very well. I'm just showing through. I'm not trying to refine what the best counter is for Marauders here. I'm just showing you their rough power level. So you can see I have not played against the team before. This is just showing you what it's like. So, okay, so now this is Dark Hunters plus Namor. Dark Hunters, very good team. This team just came out. And maybe there's something I'm missing with Dark Hunters. In other words, it very well may be the case that, like, if you play this in a better way, you're going to beat Marauders. But what I'm trying to do here is just say, okay, let's just try to play through these quickly and get a rough sense of the power level. And one thing you're going to see is that Dark Hunters are not like an easy counter for this team. Because they don't really have good they don't have good debuff removal if you've got Voodoo ability blocked, which is going to happen before you can debuff, and so you just end up getting your team ability blocked and debuffed, and you can't do anything about it. So you can see that here. And this team basically just gets picked apart. Now, like I said, is there some way that I could choose a different 5th character and play it differently and get a win here? Maybe. But I have not, I will just tell you, I did not spend hours beforehand trying to plot out the perfect Dark Hunter versus Marauder strategy. This is just my first time playing the matchup and just giving you a sense of what it's like. Definitely, if you're losing that badly in practice mode, with war buffs, with barracks and medbay and all that, it's going to be tough. All right. Now, here we go at Infinity Watch. So this, I'm just going to tell you, it's going to go a lot differently, right? Because they start with immunity. This is a team that can handle the debuffs way better. They have, obviously, Philavel has a cleanse. But since they start with immunity and the immunity can't be removed due to safeguard, that really helps a lot. So, for example, you see she's got immunity. You can't stun Moondragon. They evade those slows. So what I do, you see I conserve my ability block because the enemy has got immunity. I put my barrier up. I decide that that's worth doing. You can see I've already almost got Strife down. And I just felt like, in retrospect, by the way, I should have probably saved my cleanse. I'm not sure. But what I do here is I see, okay, Sinister's about to go, so I rewind his turn meter so that he doesn't go. And then I go here and I kill Strife. And there you go. Now you got Strife down, and I go after Madeline Pryor because I feel like she's pretty squishy and yet just puts out a lot of damage and creates a lot of problems. Once you get rid of her, I mean, the rest of the team is not nearly as difficult. Without Madeline Pryor, XFactor easily beats this team, currently in war. Okay, even with the reworks, even with the stat increases and so on. All right. So there you go. So this one I played through to the end just to show you the win because, people want to see that. But the bottom line is this was a pretty easy win from Infinity Watch. Now, I know a lot of you are like, well, yeah, of course. Remember, guys, Infinity Watch is not like a 6-month-old team, whatever it is, 8 months old. I don't even remember now. It's starting to feel its age. It's no longer the best team. We're going to see some teams that are better, right? So what it's not going to surprise you to learn that Weapon X is going to beat this team. I did not test the Eternals, but I will show you Darkhold, okay, the new team with Morgan Le Fay. I will show you how that does. But yeah, Weapon X has no trouble. Darkhold has no trouble. Infinity Watch has no trouble. But what this means is, it's going to take one of those top 5 teams. Let's include the Eternals. Their top 4 teams to beat this. Maybe there is a way with Dark Hunters to do it. I actually had a little bit of trouble, as you saw. But the bottom line is, when there's 5 teams that are that good, suddenly that's all that it takes if the developers wanted this to require, I think, an above average war offense team. Now, Infinity Watch is just above average. It's not like if you have everything in the game, it's not as super special. I'm aware that many folks who don't have Weapon X built or don't have Dark Hunters built or aren't going to have all of the Darkhold team. But I'm saying that this is also, I think, going to be a team that's largely built by really endgame players who have big accounts, right? Because who else is going to invest in an optional war defense team? So I think if you are one of those players, you should know that you are going to get your resources worth here because you're going to get a team that requires, something like an Infinity Watch to beat right now. There may be some clever hybrid that I have not come up with, but you can see it's easily beaten by Infinity Watch. So you can tell even with war buffs, that's going to be not a problem. And I just for fun show you Darkhold beat, and how that looks. But essentially, from my perspective, what this tells me is this team, the bottom line here, you'll see Darkhold's going to kick their butt. But what this tells me overall is this team is worth it if you're really into war. If you're end game and you're into war, this Marauders team is going to be worth it. Kind of like and that's, I would say the same thing for Magic. I mean, I think Magic has got to be one of the most skipped characters in the game by most players, right? Most players, like, you don't have a lot of resources. You have so many different teams to build, and if you're focused on anything, you're going to be focused, let's say, on this team that we're watching here, the Darkhold team, right? If you're able to unlock Morgan Le Fay, which it seems like people will. So, that's going to be the focus. Maybe people are focusing on their Web Warriors, Dark Hunters, other things to try to get a bit slightly bigger Morgan Le Fay. So, accordingly, this, I guess what I would just say is that this, this character may be optional. But for those of you who can afford it, I think you're going to get some real benefit. Okay, it's going to be, sure, it's going to get beaten by Darkhold. It's going to get beaten by Infinity Watch. It's going to get beaten by Eternals. But that's an amazing result. Is to take this pile of old power creep characters, throw in one new one, and then make it so that this requires your opponent to use, let's say, Infinity Watch. That's really something. All right, guys. So if you like this video, smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. If you got comments, questions, cheers, jeers, happy, sad, angry, mad, you can just put those comments below or go to my Discord. That's linked below. You can also go to my Twitch stream. That is linked below too.